They woke to the sound of cables screaming like wounded animals, a metal howl echoing through a vertical darkness that seemed to have no ceiling and no floor. When the lights flickered on, there were 14 of them. They were standing inside a colossal elevator car, the size of a gymnasium. Its steel walls were scarred with claw marks, and rusted numbers stacked so high they vanished into the shadows above. None of them remembered how they got there. All they shared was the same nightmare, falling forever, then stopping so suddenly their knees buckled. As they stood there, trembling, the elevator lurched. A mechanical voice whispered, devoid of emotion, floor selection randomized. Before anyone could even scream, the door split open. A blazing dessert greeted them. Heat poured in like fire from a furnace, dunes stretching endlessly under a white sun. The air tasted of dust and old bones. Instinct dragged them out. Staying inside that waiting box felt infinitely worse than death. Something about the elevator watched them, measured them, weighed their every breath. So they ran. They ran across sand that burned right through their shoes, finding only the wreckage of old camps and skeletons. Clutching maps that led nowhere, they learned quickly and cruelly that water appeared only when fear peaked. When panic cracked someone's voice and tears fell, rusted pipes would sweat precious liquid. Sustenance was a reward for breaking down. The doors finally slammed shut again when one of them, a boy named Ellis, collapsed. He was sobbing as a swarm of scorpions poured from the sand, stinging him until his heart gave out. The elevator trembled as if satisfied. It began to ascend, no one touching a single button, the number counter rolling upward. As the dessert vanished, the survivors screamed at Ellis's body, left behind. Their grief was just swallowed by the motion. The next stop opened to frozen ruins. Skyscrapers lay snapped like bones beneath glaciers. The wind shrieked through hollow windows, and frostbitten mannequins were frozen in the middle of a desperate run. Here, the fear was quieter, slower. It was a creeping terror that seeped into your lungs with the cold. The elevator refused to move for days. Paranoia bloomed in the silence. Fingers went numb, and whispers started, accusing one another of hiding warmth, of hoarding life. It was a girl named Meryl who broke. She panicked, running out into a blizzard, chasing the ghostly voices of her dead brother. She vanished into the white nothingness, and just like that, the elevator hummed again. It climbed. The survivors began to realize the truth, in pieces too awful to say aloud. Fear fed the system. Death lubricated the gears. The next floors came faster, each one a new nightmare. Jungles choked with vines that wrapped around your ankles the moment your heartbeat spiked. Cities flooded to the rooftops, where shadows swam just below the surface, but only when someone screamed. There were fields of mirrors that didn't reflect your face, but your worst memories. Each biome was perfectly calibrated to extract a different flavor of dread. Slowly, they started to see patterns. The elevator's speed changed with their fear. It crawled slowly during moments of numb despair, but dropped violently during waves of hysteria. One girl, Noah, noticed something else. The number counter would stutter, just for a second, whenever someone managed to master their fear. It was like the machine was choking on the wrong input. She began to teach them breathing, grounding techniques, finding calm, but this came at a cost. Calm made the food scarce. Calm made the doors reluctant to open. The others started to hate her for it, especially a man named Jax. He learned the opposite lesson. He figured out he could control the elevator by provoking terror. He threatened lives to force movement, becoming a tyrant crowned by their screams. The higher they went, the worse the floors became. Biomes were stitched together, wrong deserts bled into oceans. Gravity would break. Time would loop, so you could hear your own screams echoing before your mouth even opened. They found recordings etched into the walls by past occupants. They spoke of tests, of metrics, of watchers from above. They spoke of a world outside that had drowned in its own fear. Governments collapsed, wars ignited themselves, and scientists grew desperate enough to build this. A vertical engine that could harvest terror as infinite energy. A machine that could power entire cities as long as the fear never, ever ran dry. And so they fed it children, because children fear purely, efficiently, endlessly. The elevator had been running for decades, cycling groups through its floors until only one optimal survivor remained. A fear engine incarnate. When Noah shared this truth, half the group refused to believe it, clinging to hope like a life raft. But Jax just smiled. The power finally made sense to him. He began to orchestrate deaths with calculated cruelty, pushing the elevator faster and faster, climbing toward something promised by the numbers. But the numbers weren't just getting higher. They were descending into negatives, pulsing with a malevolent red light. When only 5 of them remained, the elevator opened to a floor that looked like Earth before the ruin. A blue sky, green grass, birdsong so perfect it hurt. And just like that, the terror vanished, replaced by an aching, soul-crushing nostalgia. The doors refused to close. Days passed as the great machine starved, alarms wailing in frustration. Finally, Jack snapped. He attacked the others, desperate to manufacture the fear the machine craved. In the struggle, he fell, screaming, and the elevator drank his terror deeply. It surged upward so violently it slammed them all into the ceiling. The final floor opened. It was a control chamber, wrapped in glass. Beyond it, they saw a dead world. Dark cities, black oceans, and massive towers topped with cables that ran down into the very shaft they just climbed. Screens flickered, showing fear metrics, emotional graphs, and footage of every single screen they had ever made. A final message played on a loop, explaining the last test. The system no longer needed many, it just needed one conductor, someone who could generate fear. Without any external environments, the fear of choice, the fear of responsibility, the fear of being completely alone. No one understood with a clarity that broke her. The elevator slowed when she felt calm. It surged when she felt doubt. The others realized it too. They backed away from her, their eyes begging her to be afraid for them, to save them by dooming herself. She stepped into the center of the room, gripping the rail. She closed her eyes, and she chose something the designers had never, ever predicted. She chose acceptance, grief without panic, love without terror. The elevator screamed like a dying god. Lights exploded, cables snapped, power drained upward and out on the dead planet. Cities flickered on briefly, then died forever. The machine ground to a halt between floors. The doors opened to nothing but open sky and wind. The shaft had been cracked wide open, and for the first time, real sunlight poured in. The survivors crawled out onto a ledge, overlooking a broken world no longer powered by their suffering. Far below, the elevator hung silent, its hunger finally, blessedly denied. As they began to walk into the vast unknown, Noah felt fear rise inside her naturally, humanly. But this time, it belonged to her, not to the machine. And for the first time since waking up in that metal box, she let herself feel it, without feeding anything at all. Thanks for watching. If you want to explore more stories that get under your skin, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.